a sailor blush. Oh, for fuck's sake, did nobody do a DNA check?
Your favorite characters from many different series. What happens if they were crossed over? Well, we'll be discovering that today into the part 4 of What If Deku was in Hazbin Hotel. Before we do start this, however, the movie of this series will be out and have a second part a fifth part, you may ask, of this series. To keep up to date, make sure you become a channel member and you'll be able to see everything early. And we also have a Discord server down below too to help out. Without further ado, let's start this video.
It was with an annoyed groan that Mitsuki reluctantly climbed out of bed and donned a bathrobe, her husband using the opportunity to chug a glass of water on the nightstand and to find more condoms. The knocking at the door had come at an annoying time too, and she wasn't expecting her son to be home for another 2 hours, which should be plenty of time to clean up. With a short stretch, she opened the door after making sure she had herself covered. A salesman, a reporter, or even a neighbor was what she expected to see, not 2 officers. She blinked in shock before sighing. What has my son done now? It may be best if we talk inside. One officer stated simply. Fat chance of it doing any good, walls are paper thin. Mitsuki shrugged as she waved them in, only now noticing a third and fourth officer trailing behind them, her son cuffed between them and a tired man with a scarf wrapped around his neck in black clothing who hadn't shaved recently tailed behind them. First off, your son isn't in any trouble right now. He is, however, on a probation period of sorts. The first officer explained. What the fuck did you do, brat? Mitsuki shouted in anger. Fuck off, hag, Katsuki snapped back. It's all shitty Deku's fault. I don't blame him for running away with how much shit you put him through, Mitsuki snapped at her son. I swear the amount of crap that comes from your mouth would make a sailor blush. Oh, for fuck's sake, did nobody do a DNA check? The man groaned as he dragged his palm down his face. DNA check? What happened? Mitsuki asked in worry as her head shot around to look at the scruffy man. The 2 officers either side of Bakugo kept a stern eye on the blonde, almost daring him to react. Bluntly put, your nephew killed himself. Aizawa deadpan, making the blonde woman gasp. What the fuck are you on about? I saw the shitty nerd in the nurse's office cuddling up to shitty hair after the red suit bastard showed up. Bakugo scoffed in agitation. Okay, explain what is going on. Mitsuki sighed as she pinched the bridge of her nose. Long and short of it, your son suicide-baited Midoriya into jumping off the school roof. We had no way to identify the body, and he recently came back from hell of all places with some beings he met there. The man stated bluntly, as if shitty nerd is probably trying to get pity from some dumb bitch. Bakugo scoffed before flinching back slightly at the glare his mother was giving him. Katsuki, Mitsuki snapped in anger. What the fuck did you say to Izuku? Who gives a shit about that quirkless Deku? Katsuki snapped back. A flash of red flames filled the center of the room, making everyone jump in fright before the flames died down, revealing a familiar imp holding a mug standing there accompanied by a werewolf in goth clothing with a pentagram-shaped bra visible through the boob window of her SHRT, who merely sighed as they held onto a clipboard while typing on a red phone. Hello again, shit stain. Blitzo grinned cheerfully at Katsuki before he looked around the room while sipping at a hot chocolate in a unicorn mug, his eyes landing on Mitsuki where he did a spit take spraying one officer with the drink. Mitsuki Eyama. Bakugo now, actually. The woman blinked. Aren't you that guy who always used to go to the charity shoots to help with the horses? Well, yeah, I think horses are just the best. The imp gave a shy smile with his head bowed slightly. Way to go, Dad. How did you manage to sneak that into a contract? The werewolf asked with a raised eyebrow and sarcastic drawl, knowing full well 9 times out of 10 he tried to sneak it into a contract. Actually, it was fairly simple. It was the payment for killing some old gangster in charge of the 7 prefects of death a few decades back. Blitzo admitted proudly. Some germaphobe Kai something or other didn't want to get his hands dirty, literally. "You do realize we are on duty, right?" one officer asked. "Statute of limitations." Blitzo grinned smugly. Translation: the idiot forgot you were there. The werewolf stated as she handed the clipboard to Mitsuki. "Read it through, then sign it, please. Just states that your son is under supervisor, as per the non-fatal clause in a hit put on him. Otherwise, I've got a knife I can ram through his chest." "Shut up, you shitty furry," Katsuki snapped. "What?" the werewolf growled. "Hey," Blitzo snapped. "Nobody talks to my baby girl Luna like that." "Shut up," the scarf-wearing man snapped, his eyes going red as his hair stood up on end and his scarf waved about like an angry cobra. "Everybody calm down." "Sure thing, pencil head," Blitzo huffed. "It's erase your head." The hero sighed as he pinched the bridge of his nose. "Now get to the point. I'm just here to collect Midoriya's stuff, seeing as this place isn't going to be suitable for him to stay at." "Can I see him? I know my son is an ass and Izuku is probably under watch, but he is still my nephew," Mitsuki pleaded to the hero. Is this a bad time?" Standing up the top of the stairs in nothing but a towel was Masaru Bakugo, who looked shocked as anything at everyone in the room. "Hey, isn't that the guy with the horse obsession?" Elsewhere, a groan of cement filled a small room as a bright light shone under the doors and through the cracks in the walls and floor. Everything shook like a tremor as a scared little girl was huddled in the corner on a tattered old mattress, a golden cube clutched in her hands, bloodied. A gas mask wearing man in white with gloves on his hands and purple feathers around his neck laid twitching on the floor in a puddle of his own flood. A gash was at the base of his neck, which was bleeding profusely. With a slam, the door was flung open, revealing a short black-clad figure, their features indistinguishable due to the bright light at their back shrouding their front in shadows. They looked around briefly, only turning their head before they spoke in a female voice. "You have called and I have answered." There was no warning before a chain shot out of the light. A rusted butcher's hook on the end dug into the man's skin, making him scream out in pain. Several more shot out of various locations around the room, seemingly coming from the shadows themselves as the man was hoisted into a perversion of Jesus on the cross. "This is no sight for a child, look away." The figure advised only for the girl to shake her head. "No, do you wish to see what becomes of him?" The girl gave a shy nod as she clutched tighter at the cube. The figure merely waved a hand, and with an agonized scream of pain, ripping of flesh and popping of bones, the man was rendered apart with a spray of blood covering everything in the room in a layer of red, including the girl. "Come, you can't be left here." The figure beckoned the small girl. Hesitantly, she stumbled closer until she was mere feet from the figure, now able to see the soft smile from pink lips and pale skin framed by green hair. With a soft and caring smile, the woman brushed some blood-soaked hair away from her face, revealing a small budding horn. "Come along now." She smiled as she led the girl into the bright light. Who are you?" The small girl stuttered slightly. The woman paused briefly before she blinked and looked down at the small girl. "You may call me your..." Mitsuki growled with gritted teeth as she tried to wrangle her pain in the ass son into a headlock to brush his hair. "Stay fucking still, brat." "Bite me, bitch," Katsuki snarled as he tried in vain to get away from his mother. The sound of thudding, hissing, and a male yelping in pain was heard from a different room in the house, but was ignored until the door that led to the bathroom was slammed open and a disgruntled Masura stumbled out covered in scratches. A small old tabby cat who was missing an eye and had two fangs poking from below its upper lip saunter out smugly. Cats had its tablet. The man grumbled in annoyance. The cat had originally belonged to his brother Hisashi Midoriya before the man left his wife and son, and after Inko's death Mitsuki decided to take in the half-blind feline. Matters were only made worse by the fact the animal had a quirk that allowed the furball to eat anything it wanted, and as much as it wanted. With a hacking cough, the cat spat up a small red oval-shaped tablet into the rug. It could also vomit up anything it had eaten on command as well. Fucking cat. Masura muttered in annoyance at the smug feline. Hopefully Izuku is able to take the furball back. Wait, shut up. Goose is fucking awesome, Katsuki declared fiercely. The explosive blonde had taken a liking to the furball, who seemed to not only understand what they were saying but purred with smug satisfaction whenever it annoyed Masura. It also helped the furball used to cough up things such as loose change or small toys for them when him and Izuku were in preschool. "Mitsuki, sweetie, it's only 7:30. Marisa stated as he shuffled off to look for band-aids for his scratches and some wipes and paper towels to deal with what was left of Goose's tablet. "So," Mitsuki grunted as she tried to get her son's hair somewhat presentable, "we aren't leaving until 10 a.m. He replied, making Katsuki freeze in shock and realization. "You telling me she is fucking with my hair when we aren't leaving for another 2.5 fucking hour?" Katsuki screamed in fury as he tried to struggle more. "You bitch." As another fight broke out, they failed to hear the mail slot open as a letter drifted down to the mat below the door. The envelope was a plain white with 3 golden diamonds printed on the front, giving the illusion of a cube. Just below it was a simple sentence that without the correct context was a harmless business slogan that read, "We have such sights to show you." Goose glared, hissing softly at the letter and backed off, never breaking eye contact with it the entire time. Elsewhere, Ibara yawned tiredly as she blinked blearily at the increasingly familiar ceiling above her. What was new, however, was the sensation of being wrapped around someone, her vine hair holding them and 2 others tightly against her chest. Looking down, she quickly snapped from half asleep to fully awake and blushing as she caught sight of the green-haired boy who saved her yesterday, while the blonde-haired girl with rosy pink cheeks in a set of red pajamas with an apple pattern on them and a gray-skinned girl with silver hair in a simple nightgown each held down one of his arms, essentially pinning him to the bed more so than her vines were currently doing. "Izu-sama," she uttered while blushing. "I'll repay your kindness by our Lord's Greyog." She shrieked in pain as she clutched at her head in pain, faintly aware of something warm running from her nose. Her scream seemed to be the thing that woke the others up all at once. Izuku from the shock instantly had his skull engulfed in flames as his flesh burnt off rapidly, bringing the stench of charred flesh that only served to make Ibara hungry, while Vaggie and Charlie sprang up with weapons drawn as their eyes quickly landed on her. "Why the fuck are you screaming at this hour?" Vaggie groaned. "I don't know what happened." Ibara admitted as one of her vines wiped the blood from her upper lip and nose before she grabbed onto the appendage and started sucking on the end. "Bad thought," Izuku squeaked as he turned around. The small fire that was present flared into a raging inferno as he did so. Vaggie's eye went wide as she blushed, and Charlie just giggled like a perv. "Too early for this shit," Vaggie muttered to herself as she looked anywhere but the oblivious Ibara. I'm going to grab coffee. Want anything? Juice, please, Izuku squeaked. A drink as dark as my soul, Charlie declared dramatically with a stern expression, gaining Ibara's attention, who blushed upon realizing what she was doing and promptly stopped. So, hot chocolate, 70% milk, 3 scoops of sugar and marshmallows? Vaggie asked with a grin. Yes, please, Charlie beamed cheerfully with a skip in her step as she headed for the bathroom. Anything for you? Vaggie asked Ibara. Just some bread and water, please. Raw meat too, if they have it. The vine-haired girl requested politely with a bow. I think the D detective will be over shortly to discuss arrangements for, well, your bee body. Izuku stammered awkwardly. Mother will be insufferable. Ibara sighed in resignation. Father would probably have a fit too. Izuku didn't know what exactly to say in the situation, but he certainly knew the feeling given that it was his life up until he took that piece of terrible advice. Is that much caffeine truly needed? Ibara asked curiously as she sipped at her water. Her vines draped over the back of the chair seemed to enjoy soaking up the sunlight from the window behind her. Trust me, I had trouble getting to sleep last night without the constant background noise of hell outside the window. It was weird as fuck. Vaggie shrugged. Language. Izuku and Ibara chided the moth demon. So, I know my parents would probably be paying for me, but what about you three? Ibara asked, making Izuku and Vaggie freeze in shock. I'm pretty sure the bank has confiscated my account after I died. Izuku seemed to pale even more, if such a thing was possible given his naturally pale complexion. Don't worry, I had it sorted. Charlie smiled as she pulled the two in for a hug. I had it paid for in full the other day. Japan accepts souls, Izuku asked in confusion, contrary to belief. Hell didn't deal with mortal souls, rather the currency was called souls, and a misunderstanding on the part of humans lead to them calling the human spirit a soul. Needless to say, it had resulted in several awkward moments and even a war in the past. Of course not, I exchanged it at a bank. They all have ties in hell since Dad seemed to like helping them with the startup funds. Charlie shrugged it off with a smile before letting go of Izuku to take a sip of her hot chocolate before pulling the green-haired Koenobite back into the hug. I always knew the banks were run by sinners. Ibara deadpan with a sigh. Great, now I'm a hypocrite. Izu-sama, do you still love me even if I'm a hypocrite sinner? Can we focus on fixing whatever Alistair did to her first? Vaggie asked with a sigh before downing her second coffee in one go, same as the first. Well, inside of every demon is a rainbow. Charlie was quickly silenced by a kiss from Vaggie. The blonde blushed, then grinned lazily with a content sigh. Hee hee wow. Is this normal? Ibara asked as she watched the scene before her with a thoughtful look, her vines raising up behind her like a snake rising from a basket. Yeah, pretty much, Izuku admitted bashfully. Both demons had used impromptu make-out sessions to stop one thing or another, mostly Charlie's singing or Vaggie trying to hurt and or kill Angel Dust or Alistair. I see. Ibara hummed to herself before her vines wrapped around Izuku, and she pulled him in for a kiss, causing his skull to combust into a raging inferno of green fire. Despite the heat and slight burns, Ibara kept her lips pressed against his lips, but then his teeth as they burnt away. She hummed contentedly as a blush blossomed across her pale cheeks. Hands off our boyfriend, Vaggie and Charlie screamed as they dove across the table, both in their demonic forms, and tacked the vine demon to the floor. My Izu-sama, Ibara snapped possessively as he vines wrapped the two demons before they could think rationally and pull their weapons on her. Please don't hurt them, Ibara-kun, Izuku asked with a raspy voice. unable to move from the neck down due to the vines which constricted him from the shoulders down. "Why you called me Kun? Izusama called me Kun," Ibara squealed happily as she blushed a bite red. If Izusama wishes it, I too shall join this harem." I think she completely misunderstood the situation. Vaggie deadpanned before being silenced by a rather heated kiss from the vine demon. "Bad thought," Izuku squeaked as he tried to look away, only for the vines holding him to constantly adjust to have him looking at the scene before him. "Me next," Charlie shouted upon seeing the satisfied grin her girlfriend was sporting. Ibara was more than happy to oblige the princess of her request. "Well, okay, you are definitely allowed to date us. I'm pretty sure this is a sin." Izuku admitted he would have certainly been blushing by now if he had any skin on his skull aside his vocal cords. How he could see he had no clue and chalked it down to magic. "I mean maybe, but they let Hitler into heaven for killing Hitler. Dad is still pissed about it," Charlie admitted with a faint blush and panting. "Wait, how does that work?" Ibara asked in confusion as her vines finally withdrew. "I have zero clue who decided it, but basically whoever killed Hitler was guaranteed a spot in heaven," Vaggie explained. "Since that Hijo Deputa Nazi offed himself, he got out of his dues." "Why didn't they just kick him out?" Izuku asked with a strained tone. "The Second World War may have been centuries ago, but that evil little man had contributed to the deadliest war in history and the deaths of millions of people." "No clue, honestly," Charlie shrugged. "Although given the amount of people in hell with an axe to grind with him and his regime, you can bet the second they do kick him out, he won't last a minute." "Great, now my breakfast is ruined." Ibara pouted as she looked at her mushed bread on the table. "At least being in Izusama's harem is worth it." "I don't have a harem," Izuku protested. "I don't know, I think Momo looks pretty hot." Charlie waggled her eyebrows with a teasing grin. "What do you think room for 2 more in one day?" "Damn it, Charlie, did you drink Baxter's energy drinks again?" Vaggie groaned with a facepalm. "I hope we aren't interrupting anything." Nezu laughed from his spot atop the secretary's shoulder. The skeletal blonde man looked shocked and embarrassed. Aizawa, who as usual looked half asleep, and the officer with them just looked fed up with everything. "We just need a signature, and we can hand over your corpse." The man sighed in agitation as he passed Ibara a standardized form. "Sign on the lines and initials where the X's are." "How often does this happen that it's standardized?" Vaggie asked as she took the forms from Ibara and began to look them over for any hidden legal trappings and loopholes. "Bureaucrats are terrifying." The skeletal man's sweat dropped. Aizawa deadpanned. "More often than not it's ecoplasm or one of his relatives that has to deal with that shit." "Ah yes, before I forget, the exam results will be handed out in 2 weeks' time, once everything has been graded. Until then, suffer ha 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 ha." Nezu cackled like a maniac. "Again rodent's special place in hell." Vaggie growled with a twitching eye as she looked up from the contract. Already having found several poorly hidden by Hell's standards legal trappings and loopholes that were relatively easy to get around as long as Ibara wasn't planning on collecting life insurance or selling off the meat from her former body as dog food. Not food, just dog food, nothing about any other animal or even person, then she was in the clear. They also couldn't claim the body was the Dalai Lama for some reason, unless they had the blessing of the previous Dalai Lama. Am I all good?" Ibara asked as she read over Vaggie's shoulder. "You're good so long as you don't collect the insurance, use your body as dog food, or claim. It is the Dalai Lama without their consent." Vaggie shrugged as she handed the forms to the vine demon, who began to fill out the forms. "Right. While that is happening, who wants some tea?" Nezu asked with a large grin. I have gold tips I have been saving for a while now that I was holding onto for a special occasion. Speaking of special occasions, when am I getting my raise? Aizawa asked the principal. When you stop expelling the entire class. Nezu cackled maniacally. Fucking rat. Aizawa grunted in annoyance. Can I at least expel the blonde bastard? Nope, the HSC will be on both our asses if that happens. Nezu shrugged. You've got to be shitting me, Aizawa groaned. Can't the pencil pushers just fuck off? Done, Ibara stated as she handed the signed form back to the officer. Here you go. He deadpanned as he handed her a small black case and left with the forms. Ibara immediately opened the case and raised an eyebrow at her decapitated head. The tooth marks across the severed neck and lower jaw certainly revealed how she died too. Nope, just nope. With that, the vine demon slammed the case shut again and planted it firmly on the table. My parents can deal with that, not me. Just know. Mitsuki Bakugo hummed to herself as she fixed up her hair with one hand, while her husband held a small mirror for her. Her other hand was currently holding onto her son's shirt to prevent him storming off. The gate to Yua was certainly much bigger than the TV made it out to be for sure. The midday sun bearing down on them probably didn't help much either. Done. She nodded to herself as she took the mirror from her husband and put it inside her handbag and then hit the buzzer next to the gate. Being early meant that they hadn't been expected for a half hour or more later, but as luck would have it, Aizawa was close enough that Nezu was able to rope the tired hero into answering the gate once the principal saw who it was through the cameras. It was with a flat glare that Aizawa gave a simple warning to the small family. Don't cause problems or I'm kicking you all out. That goes doubly for you living hand grenade. Fucking bite me, Katsuki snarled in anger, only for Mitsuki to cuff him around the back of his head. Fuck off, old hag. You sir must have the patience of a saint. Aizawa sighed as he gave a flat look towards Masura, who was trying to mitigate the situation. You don't know the half of it. The brown-haired man sighed as he led his bickering son and wife into the school, after Aizawa, who was somehow keeping walking pace while crawling in a sleeping bag. Eventually they had arrived at a massive H-shaped building covered in windows with several balconies along the upper levels from the third floor up. Entering the building itself, Masura was rather impressed with the design and made a few mental notes about looking into the designer for the next fashion shoot he and Mitsuki would be doing. It was only a simple lobby, but the aesthetics was pleasing to look at. Entering an elevator at the back of the room, Eraserhead in one swift motion went from laying down to standing up before he pressed the level 3 button and the doors closed. Heads up. There may be a dismembered head laying around somewhere, Aizawa stated bluntly. Pardon, Mitsuki gasped in shock. The problem child isn't the only one who is unread here. Aizawa sighed. How he hated Ken right now. Bastard had bribed Nezu with cheese, tea, and wine to keep most of the demons out of his classroom, only taking the former nun as Nezu didn't want things to be too easy on the vampire-themed hero. As the doors opened, they were treated to the sight of what could only be described as a flaming man made of muscle fibers being wailed on by a teen with a burning skull for a head, a pale woman covered in razor-sharp vines, a giant female anthropomorphic mother with a red spear, and a white-skinned stereotypical demon with an apple-themed trident in a dress shirt. What the actual fuck, Katsuki deadpanned. He was not in the mood for weird shit. Oh, hi Kachin. Izuku gulped nervously before awkwardly kicking the burnt being. Problem child, what is that? Aizawa deadpanned. I'm sorry, sir, Ibarra uttered as she warily kicked the burning demon. I tried to make lunch, but it summoned this instead. Less talk, more banishing legion. Vaggie snarled as she tried repeatedly to skewer the demon under them. Her spear had barely made a scratch on the multi-demon due to the heat shield it was producing with its body. Suffer not the brats. Aizawa sighed in annoyance as Bakugo jumped into the fight, each explosion actually harming Legion more than the last. At least they're not fighting each other. Masura stated with a raised eyebrow, pointedly ignoring Mitsuki joining in on the fight. Her own quirk had the nice side effect of providing a buffer layer against the fire. I better get the fucking raise. Aizawa growled, knowing full well he quirk wouldn't work on the demons, and he couldn't use it on Mitsuki or Katsuki without potentially getting them killed. 3 weeks later, Tokyo. A blonde girl with vampire-like fangs grinned to herself as she licked the blood off her blades with a blush. She had gotten into some rich art snob's house and found him already dead, ripped to shreds by hooks of all things, leaving a delightfully bloody mess. She had of course stabbed him a few dozen times to make sure he was truly dead, but she wasn't one to complain over free blood and stabbings. She looked over to the middle of the bigger blood puddle, such a waste of blood, and saw in the middle of it all was a small gold dagger engraved with lots of different symbols. With a tide of her head, she picked it up and gave it a few practice swings. This isn't that good, not very swishy, must also be good for stabbing. She grinned widely as she plunged the blade into the corpse of the man, a few times experimentally. A arch of energy shot across the blade, leaving a burning sensation in her palm as the handle clicked open and turned slowly, a melodic tune playing in the air. "Oh my gosh," she squealed in joy. "It's a stabby that plays music." "Hey, you found the knife Mummy gave me." A soft voice interrupted her fun. Turning her head, she saw a small albino girl with blood-red eyes in a simple white dress stained with blood looking at her with excitement. "Mummy said I can be friends with anyone who can make it play music. Will you be my friend?" "Sure, I'm Toga." The blonde grinned widely as she licked some blood from the blade. What little hadn't been absorbed by it, at any rate, that is. "What's your name, cutie?" "I'm Eri." The small girl grinned. "Do you like blood like my mummy does?" "Blood is awesome." Toga grinned back. Eri nodded seriously with a smile. "I've got a game I want to show you if I tell you my name. You'll have to play. I've been here for ages, biding my time waiting and primed until I could find you," Eri sang as she skipped over, uncaring of the puddle of blood she walked through. Her time with Overhaul had long since desensitized her to such things. "Just give us a shake and we can be friends. I'll be here for you until the world ends. Enjoy all the joys. We will supply you, only live once and you'll be mine." Eri continued to sing as she grasped Toga's hand, which held the gold knife. As the room began to creak and shudder, a bright light seeped under the doors and through the cracks in the walls. "The day you die, I'll have my playmate your eternal soul's arraignment. Did you divine our fun arrangement? You will love the entertainment." Eri gushed as she spun around with Toga, bloody footprints trailing in their wake as the vampire teen laughed joyfully. This was the most fun she had in years. "The fun desires you've been serving, you can bet that you're deserving no regret for who you're hurting. Why, it's almost like you're laughing." Eri continued as Toga slipped and fell yet continued to laugh, even though she had sliced open her hand on the knife, which was now sparking violently. "Come into my world, take a look at me. I am the sunshine on the dark side of the moon. I'm your first, last resort, so call me when you need a helping hand. Play your cards right, and I'll see you soon." Eri grinned widely as the room around them fell apart, revealing them to be on a platform near the middle of a sprawling maze that went on far beyond the visible horizon. A giant monolith spun slowly in the middle of it all. "Sorry, I don't mean to alarm you. If you asked to stay, I would be charmed to. You all have such cozy little lives. How do you survive like that? I wish I knew." Eri shrugged cutely as Toga's eyes went wide with what she was seeing. Even her fractured mind realized something was horribly wrong. But you've got a lovely little secret. You're tired of feeling awful small, so you give us a call to make a deal because you're looking for the sights you want to see them, earthly delights you feel you need them. Your appetites, I'll help you feed them. I'll be your sweet Cenobite demon. A new figure sung as they approached from the light emitted by the central monolith. A short female figure with pale bluish-white skin, green hair, and black soulless eyes. And once your boredom has abated, don't forget your friend who waited watched as you had your fun, and did I mention that you're cursed? The woman sung as she lifted the now terrified Toga up by her jaw. Her fingers dug into the girl's skin, drawing blood as they slid around under the surface. Come into my world, take a look at me. I am the nightmare on the dark side of the moon. I'm your first, last resort, so call me when you need a helping hand. Play your cards wrong, and I'll see you soon, the woman sung as she delicately wiped some bloody hair away from Toga's face, leaving a streak of blood as Eri dragged a small round table with snacks over. You lay your chips out on the table now. When you gamble snacks, the house will always win. I'm double dealing in the apples, and I'm here to catch my payout. I hope it was worth the life of fun. Eri sang proudly as she waved around an apple, as if it was the best thing in the world, not even noticing or realizing what was happening to Toga as a bad thing, especially compared to the horror she had endured. Welcome to my world. Take a look around inside your fantasies, deep beyond the little box. You made a wrong turn at the crossroads. Now you're at the final episode, eternity with me in hell. The woman sung as she pulled her bloodied hand out of Toga's skin, leaving behind a trickle of blood amidst a red smear. The blonde was left shuddering and poking at the wounds with a curious expression. All the while her dagger started to collapse in on itself. Gears churned and clicked as it unfolded and folded in on itself multiple times as it did so, its melody becoming more complex and beautiful as the seconds ticked by. Pleasure to play. How I will enjoy you. Let's just say when I play, I don't lose collect on the debts that you owed. It was such a laugh. I really am amused. The woman grinned as the light of the monolith bathed them in a bright light. Toga screamed in pain as she dropped to her knees, clawing at her arm as the dagger unfolded a blade right into her arm between her carpal bones. Have a fun thought. I'm right beside you, a casual giggle, just to guide you. Look over your shoulder, and I'm gone. Remember this song, and I bid you good day. The woman and Eri sung together as Toga dropped to her side, tears streaming down her face as her heart felt like it was held in an icy vice. Mummy, is she going to be my new sister? Eri asked curiously as she sat down with her apple to eat. The song had been her way of getting between her home and other people's homes, similarly to the cubes were used. No, there is something more special in mind for her sweetie. The woman explained gently. She is a bit sick, and we're going to make her better. Like a doctor? Eri asked nervously. Don't worry, little one. Nobody is going to hurt you unless you ask. The woman hushed Eri as she cuddled the smaller girl against her chest. Neither really cared much that there was now blood on both of them. For them this was an everyday occurrence. Now let's get her all better for your brother. When will I meet him? Eri asked curiously as she pulled back. Soon, sweetie, soon, and then we can be one big happy family. The woman grinned cheerfully before with another pass of light from the monolith. The three of them vanished without a trace. Only smears of blood on dusty stone marked their visit. All too soon school had started for the year. With the first day of class came a rush of new faces to the campus, with the only year-round students being a trio of students now starting their third year and a lanky student with a squirrel tail in the business course second year. The morning started off as normal for the group. Vaggie and Izuku grabbed everyone breakfast. Ibara was soaking in the morning sunlight while nibbling on a loaf of bread, and Charlie was humming to herself as she enjoyed a cup of hot chocolate. So, which teacher do you think you'll have? Izuku asked as he enjoyed a piece of toast smothered in butter and topped with bacon and egg. I think it's either Present Mike or Midnight for me. Vaggie shrugged as she blew on a cup of coffee. Well, they stuck us in 1A while Ibara is in 1B, so one of us is getting Mr. Grumpy Grumps. Charlie hummed happily. Not even the prospect of a grumpy Aizawa dampened her mood. As long as you're not in the same class as Katsuki, I'm good, Izusama. Ibara admitted with a soft frown. The girl really hated the blonde bomber after he had proceeded to insult everyone in the room with less than 20 words, and then started to try and threaten her Izusama. This all happened while they were trying to banish Legion 2. She was just glad the others didn't end up meeting her parents when she left for that after the incident, or who knows how they would have reacted. Was nice of the principal to let us share a room though. Charlie smiled happily to herself while Izuku blushed in embarrassment from the mention of it. After finding out about the arrangements, Katsuki had thrown a fit while his aunt went into matchmaker mode. He was positive there had to be a succubus somewhere within her family line. It was the only thing that made any sense. Well, it could be worse. Vaggie shrugged as she chugged the coffee in one go. At least the rat didn't sell us out to the media yet. I can see the headlines now. Charlie grinned widely as she stood up, one foot resting on the chair as she waved her left hand in the air. Not all demons bad. Or demons infiltrate hero school for evil plan. Izuku replied with a sigh, more than fed up with the media in both hell and earth. If it wasn't the vultures who pester every hero on earth, it was Killjoy and Tom down in hell trying to ruin Charlie's dream while ridiculing him and the other hotel staff. PSH, I'm sure it won't happen like that. Charlie waved it off. Did we learn nothing from Killjoy? Vaggie sighed as she put her mug in the sink and picked up a simple satchel bag from the bench. I'm off, got to get to 1E before the bell rings, and it's the other side of the school. Adios, Miss Amores. See ya after the opening ceremony, Charlie called back excitedly before taking a long gulp of hot chocolate. We should be off too. Izuku sighed as he stood up, cracking his fingers as he did so. You're going to get arthritis. Ibara stated absently as her vines shot across the room to grab her bag. That's a myth. Izuku retorted as Charlie grabbed her bag and walked into the elevator with them, still drinking her hot chocolate. After a quick descent, they came into the main lobby to find Aizawa asleep in his bag with a do not disturb sign hung around him. They simply ignored it, long since used to the man's sleeping habits. Even amongst other hero schools, Aizawa was well known to be able to sleep just about anywhere as long as he had his sleeping bag. How isn't that empty yet? Izuku asked curiously as Ibara split off from them, heading towards Campus East instead of North like they were. Bottomless cup. Charlie shrugged. What? That makes no sense. It would just continue to fall after you put the drink in if it was bottomless, or you'd need an increasingly longer straw to reach it. Izuku replied in confusion. I don't know. Charlie managed around another mouthful. I swear you're lucky you're somehow immune to cavities, Charlie. Izuku sighed as they found the sign for Class 1A. This is it, I juice. I'm so excited. Charlie practically squealed as she pushed open the door, revealing only a few desks were filled. Momo was sitting around back to the side and writing something in her notebook. The hazard tape wrapped briefcase was on the desk next to her. Tokoyami and his sister were located in the back corner of the room, with the two of them reading from an occult book. Izuku blushed bright red while Charlie giggled. After all, the symbol on the front was for a dating service in hell. A blue-haired teen with glasses was near the front, sitting as still as a statue as he went over the timetable sheet he had in front of him. Also in the back row was a set of floating clothes that was talking animatedly with the pink-skinned demon called Mina that Charlie had told him about. The rest neither he or Charlie had met before. A ginger-haired girl whose hair was done in a similar ponytail to Momo's, a girl with purple hair and audio jacks for earlobes, a rock-headed teen who was sitting quietly to the side, a teen with 6 webbed arms and a scarf over their mouth, a girl with green hair and a frog-like mouth, a purple-haired boy who looked like a mini Aizawa, a muscular teen with massive lips, a girl with a burned scar over half her face and a bob haircut, a teen with half his face also burnt corresponding with his red and white hair color, and a girl with pink dreadlocks who was wearing a pair of overalls instead of uniform who was sitting on a desk and tinkering with something. The final person was a girl whose hair seemed permanently wet and draped over her face. Her skin was a clammy gray color and small scars adorned her fingers. With a shrug, they chose to sit in the back row between Tokoyami and his sister and Momo. "So, how are you holding up?" Charlie asked Momo softly. The black-haired teen had been living off campus while her estate and parents' funerals were sorted. I've been better." Momo sighed. "I still want to destroy this blasted thing before anyone else is hurt by it." "Maybe we could try acid," Charlie suggested. Momo shook her head. "I dunked it in Perena solution and even sulfuric acid. All it did was remove any dirt and blood still within the joints." "Maybe we can melt it," Izuku offered, but blushed when Momo deadpanned. "I put this in a crucible hot enough to melt tungsten, and all it accomplished was singeing it." The heiress revealed bluntly, "Maybe we should just dump it at the bottom of the ocean." Charlie suggested, "On the list of things to try next it goes." Momo hummed as she wrote it down. "So, how have you been?" Mina asked as she turned around in her chair with a smirk to face the back row. "Any juicy details?" "Are we sure Angel Dust didn't lie about not having relatives?" Izuku muttered to Charlie. "She is giving off serious Angel Dust vibes." "It's her mother who is from back home, not her father," Charlie replied, deliberately avoiding use of the words Hell or Pentagram City. "Are we sure Angel is a guy?" Izuku replied. Charlie opened her mouth, finger raised to reply before she frowned with a thoughtful expression. "You know, I'm not sure honestly. Let's just label Angel Dust as Angel Dust and call it a day, shall we?" Charlie asked with a soft frown. She was certain that it was written on their hotel forms, but she couldn't remember what was listed given Angel Dust's atrocious handwriting. With a loud crack, the door was booted open, making everyone besides the pink-haired girl jump in shock at how sudden and loud the sound was. "What the fuck you looking at, you shitty extras?" "Oh hey, Katsuki," Izuku sighed, slumping slightly at the fact that his childhood tormentor was in the same class as him. "Shut it, Deku," the blonde snarled before storming to his desk and putting his feet up. "Get your feet off that desk now," the blue-haired teen ordered as he stood up and made robotic chopping motions with his hands. "It is highly disrespectful to our upperclassmen, not to mention your atrocious behavior is unbecoming of someone who made it into UA." "Bite me," Bakugo snapped only to be pelted in the back of his head by a pencil. Shooting up, the blonde snarled as explosions crackled in his hands. "Who the actual fuck has a death wish? I still owe you for blowing off half my face." The girl with the bob cut snarled as she gripped at another pencil. At this point, the other students got up, ready to restrain either the explosive blonde or the girl depending on how the situation went. "My parents are in debt because of the shit you did." "Like I give a shit, you bloody extra," Bakugo snarled as he made to dive at the brown-haired girl, only to find himself wrapped up in a scarf of all things and unable to use quirk. "Who the actual fuck?" Bakugo stepped down. Aizawa growled from his place at the door, his eyes glowing a bright red as his hair floated around his head. Same goes with you, Bob Cut. Hey, Sensei. The purple-haired started gesturing behind the tired hero. Who's that? Izuku could only facepalm as Aizawa jumped in shock, making him drop Katsuki face first onto the ground. Charlie giggled at the sight. Mina, however, was hyperventilating in fear. Standing behind Aizawa was Azazel, who was as usual writing down her notes in her notepad. Why are you here? Aizawa deadpan. Oh, Nezu hired me to help mediate the class, Azazel admitted. Jay, just because I'm more focused on research doesn't mean I can't fight. Whatever. Aizawa groaned as he pinched his nose, tossing several bags onto the desk at the front of the room. Everyone grab a P uniform and head down to Field Beta after getting changed. If you take longer than 6 minutes, you're expelled. Without missing a beat, several students rushed for the uniforms, while some, like the rock-headed teen, or the teen with 6 arms, were not moving from their spots. You've wasted 10 seconds, get moving, Aizawa snapped, causing the remaining students to grab a uniform and rush for the locker room. Once everyone had left, he leveled a glare at the angel. Why are you really here? I told the truth. I was hired to mediate the class by Nezu. Azazel muttered with a blush as she hid behind her notebook. At Aizawa's glare and growl, she gulped. And to keep an eye on any potential or budding romances. Figures. Aizawa snorted dismissively as he climbed into his sleeping bag and made his way towards the field. Don't think I didn't see you following me and Emma's joke on that date. She dragged me on either. Addendum to Aizawa's file. Soon, dear. Azazel muttered quietly. I have good hearing, too. Aizawa called back, making the angel squeak in fright and rush after him. Field Beta. As the class gathered in the designated field, Aizawa could only roll his eyes at how enthusiastic 2 of the class demons were being. He did make a mental note to avoid putting certain students in groups or against one another. Mainly this was between the Living Hand Grenade, Bob Cut, and Problem Broccoli Demon. Right, everybody listen up, Aizawa called. Bakugo, what's your top score for ball throw? Like 70 meters or some shit, the explosive blonde replied with a scoff as Aizawa tossed him a ball, taking no small pleasure from the fact he nailed the blonde in the face. Stand in the circle. So long as you don't leave it, you can use any means to throw the ball as far as you can. The teacher deadpanned. Bakugo growled but entered the circle before he wound back his arm, and with a cry of "Die!" and a massive explosion, the ball shot forwards. Charlie, Azazel, and Aizawa noticed how Izuku and the bob-haired girl flinched at the explosion, while the girl with earjacks winced in pain. A beep was heard as Aizawa pulled out a scanner that showed 764.3M as a result. This is what you're training for. The education system is behind in the times and won't allow quirks to flourish. Here we'll change that. Aizawa stated as he showed the class the scanner. Azazel hummed as she marked down the number in her notebook. Wow, we get to use our quirks. This will be fun. Mina exclaimed with a large grin as she punched the air. Fun? Natural disasters, villains, terrorists, having your own home attacked. Does any of that seem fun to you? Aizawa growled. That is the nature of being a hero. For that whoever scores lowest will be expelled. But that's not fair, the floating uniform shouted while jumping up and down. Life's not fair. If you think this will be a handy little 9-to-5 job and hanging out at McConnell's after school with your friends, then you have another thing coming and should just walk out now. Aizawa frowned at the invisible girl. Hey, I'm not gonna give up. Charlie grinned widely. If it means I can help people improve themselves and live a better life, then I won't quit." "Heck yeah," the ginger girl shouted with a fist pump. "I can't let my dad down, so I won't quit either." "Shut up, extras. I'm gonna be the #1 hero," Bakugo shouted back. "Like hell you are," the bob cut girl shouted back. "I'll be a better hero than you." "Bring it," Bakugo shouted and went to jump, only to be restrained once more by Aizawa, who sighed in agitation. For those who want to know why the blonde hand grenade hasn't been expelled yet, the brat has protection from the HSC. However, if he doesn't shape up, we will be booting him into general studies, Aizawa threatened. His reply was a feral growl. "You Bob Cut don't have that protection, so save it." "So, what's your name?" Charlie asked with a grin to the Bob Cut girl. "I'm Ochako Uraraka." The girl responded. "Nice to meet you. I'm Charlie Magni. This is my boyfriend Izuku." Charlie grinned as she pulled Izuku in for a hug. "Charlie," Izuku whined with a blush. "Problem child 2, don't make him burst into flames again," Aizawa stated bluntly. Next up on the ball toss is Toru Hagakure. The invisible girl walked into the circle and began her turn. "Was he joking, or is that your quirk?" The girl with audio jacks for earlobes asked with a quirked eyebrow. "I can turn into a flaming skeleton and have pyrokinetic and thermal manipulation abilities," Izuku explained, using the cover recovery girl had literally hammered into his skull over the last 4 weeks, along with several insensitives from Vaggie and Charlie in the form of snacks. Ibara, who was barred from the kitchen, instead tried offering everything from massages to movie dates to even herself. That last one had almost ended in the dorms burning down. "Damn, that's cool. All I can do is make my fist big." The ginger girl sighed in resignation. "Oh no," Charlie uttered as Izuku began to mutter rapidly to himself before, with a burst of flame, his skull was exposed as he paced and muttered. "Problem child," Aizawa snapped in annoyance as the 6-armed student started his throw. "Wow, you weren't kidding," Ochako uttered in shock. "Izuku, sweetie, you're mutting and pacing again," Charlie warned as she nudged his shoulder. He stopped, looked around before skull palmed with a raspy groan. "Sorry," he rasped before his flesh appeared over his skull in a reverse of incinerating flesh. "Irk." Uraraka gagged as she covered her mouth, trying not to vomit. Unfortunately, she forgot to lift her pinky and started to float upwards before the green-haired girl shot out her tongue, which wrapped area on the nauseous girl and pulled her back down. "If you're quite finished, Todoroki, you're up," Aizawa called. "Sorry," Izuku gulped nervously. Ochako opened her mouth to apologize, only for liquid rainbow to shoot out and onto the ground in front of her. "Here," Momo offered as she lifted her shirt enough to expose her midriff, and a bucket and towel melted out of her skin, which she promptly handed to the vomiting girl as she lowered her shirt. "I'd make some nausea pills too, but I'm not allowed to make medication or currency, or the HSC will toss me in Tartarus." "Illogical idiots," Aizawa muttered in annoyance at the HSC comment moments before a massive glacier sent the ball flying through the air. The device beeped twice. 200-301M. "Magni, you're up." "Yes, sensei," Charlie called as she jogged over. "Your uniform is stretchable, so use your quirk," Aizawa ordered bluntly. "You are sure?" Charlie gulped as with a burst of flame she assumed her demonic form. She was 3 foot taller, not counting the 2-foot horns atop her head. Her fingers now ended in sharp black talons. Her eyes turned completely red and her teeth sharpened into fangs. "Revelry in the dark." Dark Shadow cackled. "Hush, my twin," Tokoyami chided his shadowy sister. Fumikage Tokoyami. The bird-headed teen replied, Fumikage Kira. His shadow replied softly, My conjoined twin is the social one. Please leave me be. She is weakened by bright lights. She can be a right menace in the dark. Tokoyami admitted, I know a good bookstore not far from here. Wanna come along later? Ryuko asked softly, as the dark powers will it. The raven-headed teen nodded, thankful his feathers covered the blush he was experiencing. Hey, no talking, Aizawa ordered, barely reacting as a gust of wind from Charlie throwing the ball blew his hair everywhere. The device he carried beeped once more. 666 meters. With a frown, he turned to Charlie. You did that on purpose, didn't you? Did what on purpose? Charlie asked in confusion before snorting a laugh when Aizawa showed her the screen. Nope, but that's funny. She giggled. Aizawa rolled his eyes at how immature she was acting before waving her off. Rikido Soto, you're up next. Aizawa sighed. He already regretted getting out of bed this morning. It was going to be a long day. Elsewhere, in a seedy rundown pub, a blue-haired man covered in hands growled in anger as he slammed his now dissolving handheld console onto the table. Fuck. Language. Chitted what could only be described as purple smoke in a suit. Here, I'll grab the sack of games. They offered as they pulled a large bag out from under the counter and started rummaging through it. Game Boy, PSP, Xbox handheld, PS8, Nintendo Move. Huh, when did a puzzle cube get put in here? Puzzle cube, fuck it, I'm almost out of batteries anyway. The blue-haired man sighed in agitation as he scratched at his neck. Where did you steal it? With a shrug, the mist man pulled out a small, intricately carved puzzle cube plated with gold. You know, I can't quite remember. They mused before going back to cleaning the bar. From the looks of it, maybe one of those art collectors you killed the other week who said your art wasn't up to snuff. Fuck them. My art is gorgeous. The blue-haired man raged as he pointed at a crudely done finger painting of himself standing on a dead All Might. Now hand me the fucking cube, will you, or will I have to die of boredom? Mina groaned as she flopped onto her back in the middle of the grass. Besides her, Izuku and Tokoyami and Kira were doing the same. The only two still going at the current test endurance laps were Momo and Charlie. Momo had made an electric scooter and Charlie was hopped up on 2 liters of sugary hot chocolate from that morning, and Aizawa was starting to get annoyed. How is she still going? The ginger-haired girl, Itsuka Kendo, panted as she hunched over, breathing deeply. She had made a total of 23 laps before exhausting herself, while Charlie and Momo were on lap 72. Such mad revelry. Tokoyami groaned from the spot he had laid down. He had made it barely 16 laps before he had to stop. Coincidentally, it was in the shade. His sister was simply cackling at the sight of Charlie zipping around the track like she had too much caffeine. All right, pack it in, Aizawa shouted, now officially bored of the test. You proved your point. With a skip in her step, Charlie quickly made her way back to the main group of students, most of who were lounging around in the shade of the few trees that lined the field. The only ones not lying in the shade were the frog-like girl Tsuyu Asui and Mina, who were lying in the sun, and Shoto Todoroki, who had face-planted just to the side of the track and proceeded to half-freeze himself to cool off. Finally, Aizawa muttered to himself as he pressed the Compile Results button on the measuring device. I'm not going to go over everything individually, so here are your results. He droned before with a press of another button. The results showed up on the main view monitor that hung above the field and was used for events like the sports festival. In first place was Charlie, who had only really failed the side jumps after she tripped over her own feet 20 seconds in. Tied for second was Shoto and Momo. Izuku somehow managed to grab third place by a mere 2 points, which he gained during the ball throw, managing 666M like Charlie. Of course, Aizawa had threatened to expel both him and Charlie if they managed to pull that number as a result again, much to most of the class's confusion. Fourth was Bakugo. The blonde hadn't taken it well, obviously, but a glare from Aizawa was enough to keep him in check for now. Eventually, all the way down in last place was Toru Hagakure, the girl with an invisibility quirk. She was on her knees crying softly, certain she would be sent home, while Tsu and Ochako tried to comfort her. By the way, nobody is expelled. It was all a logical ruse to make you perform better, Aizawa stated blandly as he tucked himself away in his sleeping bag. Thank God, Toru sobbed with relief as she hugged Tsu tightly. The frog girl merely croaked in shock before shrugging. Down in hell, a grape-haired demon who was being tortured by an irate Luna, who he tried to grope, sneezed. It was rather obvious that's a lie, Sensei. You expelled your entire class last year, Momo pointed out, having heard about what happened to the previous class from Recovery Girl the night her parents died. What? Toru shrieked, making Tsu flinch due to how close she was. Nobody here has zero potential. That said, Aizawa frowned severely as he glared at the students. You all better shape up. The only ones who have to hold back for safety reasons are Midoriya, who could incinerate us all, and Todoroki, who could freeze us all. That said, I expect tighter control from both of you. Hatsum, why the hell you aren't in the support class is beyond me, but if another of your inventions explode in my face, you're expelled. Huh? The pink dreadlocked girl grunted as she barely looked up from her latest baby that looked like some sort of metal boot mixed with a hairdryer. And pay attention, Aizawa snapped in agitation. Sure, Sensei. She waved him off absently. Bloody rodent mixing up class rosters. Aizawa grumbled quietly enough that only Jiru heard him. Nezu had apparently decided to mix which students went into which course, much to the agitation of most teachers. Some sparkly French kid had been moved from the hero course to business. His class gained Shinsu. Vlad had gained Ibara due to his bribe backfiring. Nimiri had a boy called Zero in her class, after he was originally slated for his own, and Power Loader had gained an overly competitive kid called Tetsu in the support class. So, what now? Jiru asked uncertainly as her ear jacks clicked against one another. Now you brats will grab your work packs from homeroom and head home. You'll all be moving into the dorms tomorrow, and I expect you to be able to do it yourselves, as I won't be holding your hands, Aizawa stated bluntly as he pulled out a juice box and started drinking. Where does he even get those? Shoji asked in confusion. Ooh, kinky. Miss Joke, son. Please don't pray to my dad, kinda weird for me. Charlie stated before going back to the phone call. I'll get the ice. Izuku offered as he opened the freezer, only to get deadpanned at by everyone as the air extinguished his skull and knocked him over. His flames tend to do that when in contact with ice, unless he's flaring his fire, Vaggie explained as she stepped over Aizawa to grab the ice herself. No clue why he seems to keep forgetting the fact. Maybe because he was quirkless and not used to his powers, Momo replied. The amount of things he had to deal with are astounding. Honestly, it's a wonder he didn't snap and kill half his old class using the things in the science labs. Explain now. Aizawa ordered from his spot on the floor, only to wince in both pain and annoyance as Miss Joke decided to lay down next to him and cuddle his arm as Vaggie put a bag of ice on his shoulder to try and numb the pain. The blonde Pomeranian with the attitude problem wasn't the only one to bully him. Honestly, that school needs to be investigated and shut down. Vaggie scoffed disdainfully as she folded her arms. And the HSC wants him to attend Y again. Aizawa groaned tiredly as Charlie hung up the phone. She's on her way now with Nezu, the blonde explained as she pulled a pot from the cupboard, turned it upside down, and propped up Izuku's feet with it. How did you get the music to play so that only Izuku and Momo could hear it? What music? Miss Joke asked in confusion, making Momo's eyes widen in fear. Seriously, what music? Oh fuck me. Momo whimpered as she curled into a ball on the floor, clutching at her chest. Random weapons dripped from her skin and fell to the floor. Daggers, switchblades, swords, tasers, and maces, the list went on. Nobody was able to get close to her, however, for fear of being accidentally stabbed or cut by the weapons. They could only watch on in horror as the weapons were starting to come out no longer clean. Streaks of blood or sections of ripped-off skin adorned the blades as cuts opened up across her skin. Oh my cane, what the fuck? Vaggie uttered in horror. Charlie was already hunched over a garbage can and vomiting, while Ibara was trying to stop herself from lunging forwards, just to lick the blades clean of any blood. What's happening? Aizawa demanded. I can't see shit, so tell me what's happening. Her quirk is out of control. Vaggie replied quickly. She is literally having a panic attack, and she is going to bleed herself to death. Damn it, I don't know how to help here. If I use my quirk, it could just make it worse. Miss Joke gulped as she pulled herself away from Aizawa and stood up. Stay there, Zawa. I'm going to run outside and grab Recovery Girl quicker than she can walk. Damn it, get back here, Aizawa shouted at the retreating back of the clown-themed hero. Damn that woman. Aye, it hurts. Momo groaned in pain as tears ran down her face. SHH, it'll be okay. Ibara shushed the sobbing teen as she wrapped her in a hug, wincing in pain as a blood-stained knife sliced down her lower leg as it fell to the floor. Recovery Girl will be here soon. It burns, Momo screamed in pain as what could only be described as a trio of techno-organic blades forced themselves out of each of her forearms, her flesh hanging from the blades for the lower quarter as blood tripped down them at a gradually slower rate. Okay, either your quirk is broken or it has evolved. Charlie gave a strained smile as she tried to comfort the black-haired girl. Look on the bright side though, now nobody can tie you up. Out of the way, old lady coming through, Miss Joke cried as she sprinted back in with Recovery Girl slung over one shoulder and Nezu riding on her other. Put me down, Recovery Girl snapped as she whacked her cane over Miss Joke's arm before being let down. What happened? She demanded as she made her way around the room. Problem child knocked himself out. I have a broken collarbone and Yaeruso had a panic attack and her quirk is acting weird. Aizawa explained from his place on the floor. You didn't move, did you? Recovery Girl growled at the underground hero. I'm not risking another cane to the face, Aizawa stated bluntly as he glared at the old woman. Last time he had moved after breaking a bone that hadn't been either set or death with Recovery Girl had left him with a nasty bruise and a ringing in his ear after she was done yelling at him for being stupid. You better not. Ryosuri Girl huffed as she kissed the hobo hero on his forehead. With no time at all, Aizawa was out cold and with a healed collarbone. Seeing there was nothing further that could be done for Izuku given his feet were already propped up, she moved on to Momo, who was still shaking, and now rather pale from blood loss. Look, she's here now. Ibara tried to soothe Momo while using her vines to collect up any and all weapons that the girl was making. Looks like a simple case of panic-based quirk activation. Give her some time to calm down and she'll be alright. Recovery Girl hummed. As for her lacerations, I can fix that now. Leaning down, she placed a kiss on the black-haired girl's head only to frown when nothing happened. Odd. What's odd? Momo asked in worry. Nothing you need to worry your head about, dearie. Just want you in my office for observation tonight if it's okay, Recovery Girl asked politely before frowning as she tried to check Momo's wrist for her pulse. Her expression began to grow worried when she couldn't find a pulse on the girl's neck either. Oh my. Nezu hummed to himself as he strolled over. Been a while since I saw this in person. What in person, you damned rodent? Vaggie growled in annoyance. Come on, let's all just get along. After all, inside every demo. Charlie pleaded only for Ibarra to wrap a vine around her mouth to silence the song before it began. Nezu merely grinned widely with an unsettling cackle before he replied, Well, the creation of a Cenobite, of course. Heaven. Cherub was in full swing, making their usual preparatory work before a job, mostly dumping it all on Colin while the others relaxed. What they had sadly overlooked during this all, however, was a teeny tiny little detail of do not approach and danger stamp on the file of the one they wanted heaven bound. If only Colin, Keeney, and Cletus hadn't been sent to hell with it, would have been a simple task to notice. Sadly, things were about to take a turn for the worse for Cherub during their visit to one individual, who's most commonly known by their pseudonym of Hero Killer. Thank you all for watching, and what you want next, tell me here for idea. Bye, boys.